When it rains, it pours. When everything goes wrong at once. For example, they not only left home late but also got stuck in traffic. When it rains, it pours. Miss the boat. To act too slowly and miss an opportunity. For example, you will miss the boat if you wait any longer. Pull someone's leg. To make fun of someone. For example, Kevin's friends kept pulling his leg all evening. No pain, no gain. Suffering or making efforts is required to achieve something. For example, it is better you start learning now. It will be difficult but no pain, no gain. See eye to eye. To have the same opinion or the same point of view. For example, it is highly required that you both see eye to eye if you want this resolved. Wear your heart on your sleeve. To be extremely open about what you feel and think. For example, Divya wears her heart on her sleeve. She tends to get hurt very often. Takes two to tango. Two persons are equally responsible for what is happening or has happened. For example, it is not possible Sandhya is the only one involved. After all, it takes two to tango. Come rain or shine. No matter what happens. For example, come rain or shine, I will be there for you. So far, so good. Means that everything has turned out well until that point. For example, everything so far has been so good. Comparing apples to oranges. To compare two things that are completely different and cannot be compared. For example, comparing a doctor's profession to a teacher's profession is like comparing apples to oranges. Give a cold shoulder. Act rudely to someone. For example, nobody knows why Diaz gave Rayon a cold shoulder. Better late than never. To do something later rather than not at all. For example, well, we thought it was better late than never, but where are the others? Let sleeping dogs lie. To stop discussing something that is already over or sorted out. For example, the police had warned us to let sleeping dogs lie and move ahead with our lives. Cold feet. Meaning, becoming nervous. Example, it was her chance to speak and she was getting cold feet. Miss the boat. To act too slowly and miss an opportunity. For example, you will miss the boat if you wait any longer. Cost an arm and a leg. Used to refer to something that is extremely expensive. For example, I think it will cost an arm and a leg to get the car my brother wants. Catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. Getting what you want by being nice. For example, if you ask politely, you may be able to catch more flies with honey than you can with vinegar. Pull someone's leg. To make fun of someone. For example, Kevin's friends kept pulling his leg all evening. Comparing apples to oranges. To compare two things that are completely different and cannot be compared. For example, comparing a doctor's profession to a teacher's profession is like comparing apples to oranges. Get your act together. To stop fooling around and do something in the way it should be done. For example, it is time you get your act together and do something useful. Adding fuel to the fire. Aggravating the problem. For example, she was just adding fuel to the fire telling Tom's mom about his health. When pigs fly. When something uncanny or impossible happens. For example, pigs would fly if you cooked. Curiosity killed the cat. Asking too many questions or involving too much in other people's affairs will get you into trouble. For example, it is better we don't dig more into this case. Curiosity killed the cat. The best of both worlds. Good in every way. For example, having my best friend is the best of both worlds. Burn bridges. Do something to spoil relationships. For example, Susan did not realize she would be burning bridges when she took up the job. The whole 9 yards. Refer to everything that is there. For example, he has to sell the whole 9 yards if he wants to buy that house. Grass is greener on the other side. Never being satisfied with what one gets. For example, for her, grass is always greener on the other side. Every dog has its day. Everyone gets a chance. For example, do not worry about it. Every dog has his day. Today, it is his. Counting your chickens before they hatch. Expecting good results before something is done. For example, she started counting her chickens before they hatched. That will only disappoint her. I hope she understands. Go down in flames. To fail terribly. For example, everything went down in flames when we lost the lottery. Take everything with a pinch of salt. Refers to being skeptical and not believing blindly. For example, my mom always asks to believe everyone with a pinch of salt. Fit as a fiddle. To be in good health. For example, my great-grandmother is surprisingly fit as a fiddle. Cry over spilt milk. worrying or complaining about something that cannot be fixed or rectified. For example, there is no use crying over spilt milk. You just have to move on with your life. Wrap your head around something. Try to make sense about what is going on. For example, my mom was finding it hard to wrap her head around the fact that I am getting married tomorrow. Cut the mustard. Do a perfectly good job. For example, the police cut the mustard in finding the gang that robbed the bank. Jump from the frying pan into the fire. Refers to a situation becoming worse. For example, he did not know he was jumping from the frying pan into the fire when he decided to speak about the problems at work. Have a method to one's madness. Seeming to be crazy but, in fact, clever. For example, everyone thinks he is crazy, but he sure has a method to his madness. Do something at the drop of a hat. Do something unplanned. For example, he can plan a whole trip at the drop of a hat. Get wind of something. To have information about something secret. For example, it is so hard to get wind of what is going on here. Hear it from the horse's mouth. To know something from the person involved. For example, we finally heard it from the horse's mouth. A pain in the neck. Refers to a person who is annoying. For example, Rihanna was a constant pain in the neck. Once in a blue moon. Very rarely. For example, we met each other only once in a blue moon. Break the ice. To make people feel comfortable with those who are unfamiliar to them. For example, the communication trainer conducted an activity to break the ice. Rain cats and dogs. Raining heavily. For example, it has been raining cats and dogs since yesterday. The best thing since sliced bread. A good and useful invention. For example, the smartphone is the best thing since sliced bread. Walk in the other's shoes. To understand what the other is going through. For example, you will not understand unless you walk in their shoes. Having a monkey on your back. To have a problem that you cannot solve or get rid of easily. For example, not completing my degree is a monkey on my back. Go on a wild goose chase. Doing something pointless. For example, finding the red and black dress I saw online felt like going on a wild goose chase. Bark up the wrong tree. Following a misguided or mistaken thought or action. For example, He did not know he was barking up the wrong tree. Have the ball in one's court. One can make a call, decide on their own. For example, Rahul finally had the ball in his court.